It's such a beautiful vitamin and so important. And you and I tend to neglect it and what it does in the body and with hemoglobin is wonderful. All right, so the structure is quite huge, as you can see. I don't expect you to know it by heart. So it's called cobalamin. B12 deficiency, a highly under-researched area, leads to huge fall in red cells, which are required to carry oxygen to all cells. And this is taken from Harrison's principle of internal medicine. So normal is 180 to less than 200 is severe clinically significant deficiency. 200 to 300 ng, moderate B12 deficiency. Above 300 ng, subtle B12 deficiency. And you can see the values are quite large. They're quite large. So anything above 300 should put you very, very safe. All right. Okay, so I think you all know that whenever you felt weak, what was the ideal thing your doctor recommended? You know, shots, right? B12 cyanocobalamin shots, right? Vitamin B12 has the largest and most complex chemical structure of all vitamins. It is unique among vitamins in that it contains a metal ion, cobalt. For this reason, cobalamin is the term used to refer to compounds having vitamin B12 activity. Methylcobalamin and 5-deoxyadenosylcobalamin are the forms of vitamin B12 used in the human body. The form of cobalamin used in most supplements, cyanocobalamin, is readily converted to 5-deoxyadenosyle and methylcobalamin in the body. In mammals, cobalamin is a cofactor for only two enzymes, methionine synthase and L-methylmalonine co-mutase. So you can see that the cobalt in the middle. All right, and there's a little bit of biochemistry involved, and you can see the mitochondria. Most of it takes place in the mitochondria. So you've got methyl CoA converted to succinyl CoA, and you've got the chemical what do you call it, formulas next to it. All right. So vitamin B12, as we know it, vitamin B12 is an essential water-soluble vitamin that is commonly found in a variety of foods such as fish, shellfish, meat, eggs, and dairy products. B12 is frequently used in combination with other B vitamins in a vitamin B complex formulation. Vitamin B12 plays an important role in supplying essential methyl groups for protein and DNA synthesis. Vitamin B12 is bound to protein in food. Hydrochloric acid in the stomach releases B12 from protein during digestion. Once released, B12 combines with a substance called intrinsic factor, keep this in my IF, before it's absorbed in the bloodstream, and we'll see how important this intrinsic factor is. Okay, so deficiency, the human body stores several years worth of vitamin B12 in the liver. So nutritional deficiency of this vitamin is extremely rare. However, deficiency can result from being unable to use B12. Inability to absorb vitamin B12 from the intestinal tract can cause something called pernicious anemia. Vitamin B12 deficiency is common in elderly people, HIV infected persons, and vegetarians who are not taking in proper amounts of B12. They're also prone to this deficiency. So you've seen the liver, and the liver stores quite a bit of B12, as our first sentence says. The function: cofactor for methionine synthase, Methylcobalamin is required for the function of folate-dependent enzyme methionine synthesis. The enzyme is required for the synthesis of amino acid methionine from homocysteine. Methionine in turn is required for the synthesis of S-adenosyl methionine, a methyl group donor used in many biological methylation reactions, including the methylation of a number of sites within the DNA and RNA. And we'll see why this becomes important. Methylation of DNA may be important in cancer prevention. Inadequate function of methionine synthesis can lead to an accumulation of homocysteine, which can be associated with increased risk of cardiovascular diseases. So keep this in mind. RNA, DNA, homocysteine, and cardiovascular diseases. We'll see the combination. Okay. So here again we have some biochemical pathways, but one is converted to the other, and a role that vitamin B12 plays in it. Take a look at it. Okay. Function, another important one, cofactor of L-methylmalonyl CoA mutase. 5-deoxyadenosylcobalamin is required by the enzyme that catalyzes the conversion of L-methylmalonyl CoA to succinyl coenzyme A. This biochemical reaction plays an important role in the production of energy from fats and proteins. That's succinyl coenzyme A is looking familiar, isn't it? Succinyl CoA is also required for the synthesis of hemoglobin, the oxygen-carrying pigment in the red cells. If you remember how it was formed, right? Succinyl coenzyme A. Go back to your hematology notes and you will see there how important succinyl coenzyme A is. All right, this again some set of biochemical reactions. You can take a look at it. Conversion of folate to vitamin B12. Then again you've got the other way around. You've got homocysteine, which is bad, and you've got B6, and you've got cysteine to methionine. All right. How does the deficiency occur? Vitamin B12 deficiency is estimated to affect 10 to 15% of individuals over the age of 60. Absorption of vitamin B12 from food requires normal function of the stomach, pancreas, and small intestine. So all three are involved. Stomach acid and enzymes free vitamin B12 from food, allowing it to bind to other proteins called R proteins. In the alkaline environment of the small intestine, R proteins are degraded by pancreatic enzymes, freeing vitamin B12 to bind to intrinsic factor. Now keep this in mind, intrinsic factor, a protein secreted by specialized cells in the stomach. And you need this IF to absorb the B12. Receptors on the surface of small intestine take up the IF B12 complex only in the presence of calcium, which is supplied by the pancreas. Vitamin B12 can also be absorbed by passive diffusion, but this process is very inefficient. Only about 1% of absorption of vitamin B12 dose is absorbed passively. So you need the intrinsic factor together with the B12, and the process starts from there. Here we go. You've got the stomach, you've got B12 cobalamin, you've got the stomach, you've got intrinsic factor, which is very important for the absorption. So causes pernicious anemia. This is what it causes, deficiency. Although anemia is often a symptom, the condition is actually the end stage of autoimmune inflammation of the stomach. Food-bound vitamin B12 malabsorption. Food-bound vitamin B12 malabsorption is defined as an impaired ability to absorb food or protein-bound vitamin B12 through the free form, although the free form is finally absorbable. atrophic gastritis, and the condition frequently associated with infection by the bacteria. Helicobacter pylori, H. pylori infections, induces chronic inflammation of the stomach, which may progress to peptic ulcer disease, atrophic gastritis, and or gastric cancer in some individuals. Other causes of B12 deficiency: surgeries, resections of sites where IF B12 absorption occurs. Take a look at it, right? Digest it. Consequences of atrophic gastritis: decreased secretion of hydrochloric acid and pepsin, can lead to decreased release of protein-bound B12 in food, in turn decrease availability of vitamin B12. Or it can take the other pathway, decreased density of bacterial populations in small intestine, which will again decrease availability of vitamin B12. Deficiency, what does it cause? Vitamin B12 deficiency results in the impairment of the activities of B12 requiring enzymes. Megaloblastic anemia, I'm sure you've heard of it, that tells you large cells in the bone marrow. This in both folate and vitamin B12 deficiencies. Folate is unavailable to participate in the DNA synthesis. This impairment of DNA synthesis affects the rapidly dividing cells of the bone marrow earlier than other cells, resulting in the production of large, immature, hemoglobin poor red cells. The resulting anemia is known as megaloblastic anemia and is a symptom for which the disease pernicious anemia was named. Clear? This is both folate and vitamin B12 deficiencies. Folate is unavailable to participate in DNA synthesis, and we'll see this a little later. The impairment of DNA synthesis affects the rapidly dividing cells of the bone marrow earlier than the other cells, resulting in the production of large, immature, hemoglobin poor red cells, megaloblasts. The resulting anemia is known as megaloblastic anemia, and symptoms for which the disease pernicious anemia was named. The next slide: gastrointestinal symptoms. Tongue soreness, appetite loss, constipation have been associated with B12 deficiency. The origin of these symptoms are unclear, but they may be related to the stomach inflammation underlining some cases of B12 deficiency, or to the increased vulnerability of rapidly dividing gastrointestinal cells to impaired DNA synthesis. Here we go. You can see the blood picture. You can see a lot of polychromasia. You've got, I don't think that looks like a megaloblast. You've got poikilocytosis, right? Poikilocytosis. You've got schistocytes. You've got macrocytes as well as microcytes. So the picture is mixed. Can you see? Platelets are there. Right? Then it can also lead to neurological system. The neurological symptoms for vitamin B12 deficiency includes numbness and tingling of the arms, and more commonly the legs, difficulty walking, memory loss, disorientation, and dementia with or without mood changes. I think you know the meaning of these words. Although the progression of neurological symptom complications is generally gradual, such symptoms are not always reversible with treatment of vitamin B12 deficiency, especially if they have been present for a long time. Neurological complications are not always associated with megaloblastic anemia and are the only clinical symptoms of vitamin B12 deficiency in about 25% of cases. Although vitamin B12 deficiency is known to damage the myelin sheath covering the cranial, spinal, and peripheral nerves, the biochemical process leading to neurological damage in B12 deficiency are not well understood. So definitely if you have something happening going wrong with your myelin sheath, you are going to land up with some sort of neurological problems. Then you've got B12 and disease, homocysteine and cardiovascular disease. The results of more than 80 studies indicate that even moderately elevated levels of homocysteine in the blood increase the risk of cardiovascular disease, though the mechanism by which homocysteine increases the disease risk remains to be a subject of great deal of research. So increased homocysteine and cardiovascular disease, keep that in mind. The amount of homocysteine in the blood is regulated at least by 3 vitamins: folate, B12 and vitamin B6. Analysis of the results of 12 homocysteine lowering trials showed folic acid supplementation 0.5 to 5 milligrams per day has the greatest lowering effect on blood homocysteine levels, 25% decrease. Co-supplementation with folic acid and vitamin B12, mean 0.5 milligrams per day or 500 micrograms per day, provides an additional 7% reduction, 32% decrease in blood homocysteine concentration. So usually homocysteine is associated with cardiovascular problems. Here we go. Those interested in biochemical reactions, all right? Cancer. Folate is required for the synthesis of DNA, and there is evidence that decreased availability of folate results in strands of DNA that are more susceptible to damage. Deficiency of vitamin B12 traps folate in the form of unusable by the body for DNA synthesis. Both vitamin B12 and folate deficiencies result in diminished capacity for methylation reactions. Thus, B12 deficiency may lead to an elevated rate of DNA damage and altered methylation of DNA, both of which are important risk factors for cancer. A recent studies in young adults and older men indicate that increased levels of homocysteine and decreased levels of B12 in the blood were associated with a biomarker of chromosome breakage in white blood cells. In double-blind placebo-controlled study, the same biomarker of chromosome breakage was minimized in young adults who were supplemented by 700 micrograms of folic acid and 7 micrograms of vitamin B12 daily in cereal for 2 months. So there, the advantages are there. So here you have a picture of how DNA works. The defining moment for DNA was the discovery of its structure in 1953. Main functions of DNA, the genetic material that forms chromosomes in the cell nucleus. You know that human cell nucleus contains 46 chromosomes. Chromosome, when unraveled, it consists of double DNA. DNA held together by 4 chemical bases. Remember, adenosine, thymine, cytosine, guanine. Where one has A, the other has T. Where one has C, the other must have G. Cell splits. When cells split to make 2 cells, strands of DNA come apart. Double helix form. Spare free floating bases formed within the cells are added to the open strand to turn each strand into a double helix again. So this is how your DNA unfolds and multiplies. No, let's go back to the picture. All right, so here you go. You've got the chromosome and you've got the DNA strand. And it's a little bit to your, I think, maybe standard 9-10 genetics, which you may have studied.
12th.
Or you may have studied it
12th.
in the 12th.
That's what you say.
Or a little later on. Okay. Breast cancer studies with vitamin B12 and folate. A case-controlled study compared the pre-diagnostic levels of serum folate, vitamin B6 and vitamin B12 in 199 women later diagnosed with breast cancer and 125 age-matched women who were not diagnosed with cancer. Among women who were postmenopausal at the time of blood donation, the association between blood levels of vitamin B12 and breast cancer suggested a threshold effect. The risk of breast cancer was more than double in women with serum vitamin B12 levels in the lowest quintile, 1/5, compared to women in the 4 highest quintiles. The investigation found no relationship between breast cancer and serum levels of vitamin B6, folate, and homocysteine. So your B12 becomes important. All right. Conclusion to breast cancer: there has been little evidence to suggest a relationship between vitamin B12 status and breast cancer risk. However, high dietary folate intake have been associated with reduced risk of breast cancer in several studies, and some studies have reported that vitamin B12 intake may modify this association. All right, now neural defects. The neural defect forms the early brain and spine. These type of birth defects develop very early during pregnancy, often before a woman knows she's pregnant. The two most common NTDs are spinal bifida, a spinal cord defect, and anencephalopathy, a brain defect. And I think a lady who's pregnant is always supplied, the doctor tells her have enough folate, and he sees to it that folate is there in the prescriptions. Now this neural tube defect, NTD, may result in anencephalopathy or spina bifida, devastating and sometimes fatal birth defects. The defects occur between 21st and 27th day of conception, a time when many women do not realize they're pregnant. Increasing evidence indicates that the homocysteine lowering effect of folic acid plays a crucial role in lowering the risk of NTD. Homocysteine may accumulate in the blood when there is inadequate folate and or vitamin B12 for effective functioning of the methionine synthesis enzyme. Decreased B12 levels in the blood and amniotic fluid of pregnant women have been associated with an increased risk of NTD, suggesting that adequate vitamin B12 intake in addition to folic acid may be beneficial in the prevention of NTD. So that is the reason why your gynaec see to it that the pregnant lady takes enough supply of a B12 and folate. And you can see that baby, you can see the neural tube defect. Can you see that? I think we have one more picture in the next one. Here we go. It's sad, isn't it? Spina bifida, dura mater, spinal cord, spinal fluid, vertebra. And how can this, living becomes a little impossible for a child like this. Okay. Alzheimer's disease and dementia. Individuals with Alzheimer's disease often have low levels of vitamin B12. The reason for the association of low vitamin B12 status with Alzheimer's disease is not clear. Vitamin B12 deficiency, like folate deficiency, may lead to a decreased synthesis of methionine and S-adenosyl methionine, thereby adversely affecting methylation reactions. Methylation reactions are essential for the metabolism of components of the myelin sheath of the nerve cells as well as neurotransmitters. Also, moderately increased homocysteine levels as well as decreased folate and vitamin B12 levels have been associated with Alzheimer's disease and vascular dementia. Depression. Observation studies have found that as many as 30% of patients hospitalized for depression are deficient in vitamin B12. And I think, guys, you're hearing this term dementia more and more in our lifestyles. With friends, in relatives, and either it is Alzheimer's or it is Parkinson, and it is really pathetic. And there's a way of curbing this very quickly if sufficient enough of vitamins are taken by the individual. Only bacteria can synthesize vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is present in animal products such as meat, poultry, fish, and to a lesser extent milk. but it is not generally present in plant products or yeast. Fresh pasteurized milk contains about 0.9 microgram per cup, and it is an important source of vitamin B12 for some vegetarians. Those vegetarians who eat no animal products need supplement vitamin B12 to meet their requirements. Also, individuals over the age of 50 should obtain their vitamin B12 and supplements or fortified foods like fortified cereal because of the increased likelihood of food-bound vitamin B12 malabsorption. Most people do not have a problem obtaining RDA of 2.4 micrograms of vitamin B12 in the food. That's a minimum requirement. Of course, these are the foods which are rich in B12. You've got milk, you've got strawberry, you've got honey, you've got fruits. So I think you also have fish, cereals, and certain vegetables. Okay, supplements. Cyanocobalamin is the principal form of vitamin B12 used in supplements, but methylcobalamin is also available as a supplement. Cyanocobalamin is available by prescription in an injectable form and as a nasal gel for treatment of pernicious anemia. Over-the-counter preparations contain cyanocobalamin include multivitamin, vitamin B12 complex, and vitamin B12 supplements. Toxicity has not been reported. So this is your B12 shot, and I'm sure some of you have had it one time or the other. And it really perks you up. Alright, now, but a new study links vitamin B12 deficiency with low bone mineral density in men and confirms similar previously reported findings in women. So you need it for your bones also. Researchers found that with vitamin B12 levels lower than 148 picomoles per liter were at greater risk of osteoporosis than those with higher levels. Plasma B12 levels below 185 are considered very low, according to some experts. The study found that those with vitamin B12 concentrations below 148 are significantly lower average bone mineral density, but at the hip in men and at spine in women than those with concentrations above. So the study found that with vitamin B12 concentrations below 148 had significantly lower average bone mineral density at the hip in men and at the spine in women than those with concentrations above. So here we go. This can affect your spine. It can affect you can see the normal bone matrix, and then you can take a look at the osteoporosis. The bones are absolutely whole. What do you call holy? You have a honeycomb-like appearance, and these individuals are usually in trouble. To conclude, the range of symptoms of B12 deficiency include anemia, balance disturbances and cognitive decline. Osteoporosis usually progress with no outward effect until a fracture occurs. That is too late. The recommended dietary allowance for vitamin B12 is 2.4 micrograms per day for both men and women. Low stomach acid and aging can lower the ability to absorb the vitamin. Those over the age of 50 are encouraged to consume fortified foods and supplements containing B12. This study suggested adequate vitamin B12 intake is important for maintaining bone mineral density. Animal protein foods such as fish, liver, beef, pork, milk, and cheese are good sources of vitamin B12. So this is another thing that doctors order very, very often, bone mineral density. So the reference range is 200 to 900 picograms per ml. Approximately may vary slightly in some labs. So the range is quite big. And that's the end of today's lecture for you. I've given you the most important points, and it's something, a vitamin that we take so much for granted. So much for granted. Any questions? Open it up. Shri, Parul, Meena, Parizad.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
First of all, really sorry to hear the news.
No, that's okay.
Just reminding us how unpredictable life is. I know, like these news are really shocking. Secondly, doctor, my question is, like you mentioned, the sources of vitamin B12 are mostly meat, fish. So, what would you suggest somebody who's vegan and vegetarian? For example, I'm asking for my mother. She's somebody who will never do blood test, or she won't do blood test for just finding the levels of vitamin B12 in her blood. So I need to tell her something. What can I
But
say?
for
Because
for,
I'm
for
sure
if
she's
she
not.
is a vegan, what is her diet like?
Uh, just like a normal vegetarian household, ma'am, like rice and lentils. But I'm
Yeah,
sure
but
they are.
you know it is the vegetarians who will end up into trouble. So you'll have to
Yes,
give her
that's the
supplement, give
problem.
her
Yeah.
supplements from outside, no?
So, ma'am, my question: what are better, like tablets or most of us in Qatar? They
No,
are
I have a
more
feeling it is
favorable
combination
to
of
these
both.
things.
It's a combination of both. She has a good stock of vegetables and fruits that are rich, and you must
Okay.
have the supplements. I think, yeah, all that is there. Honey is there, strawberry is there. Uh, she's a vegetarian, so she won't touch fish and liver.
That's right.
Yes.
But I think you'll have to see that she maintains a minimum dose of B12.
Soya is also good.
Hmm.
Soya chunks.
So it's okay even if she doesn't get a blood test. It's fine. Like we can put her on
As long as
tablet
she
or
doesn't
some-
complain of this backache and that backache, bone problem नहीं है,
Okay.
तो जाने दो. I suggest the less you get into this, the better it is. But then if she starts complaining that I'm walking and my bones are hurting, or my hand is
Okay.
hurting, or my back, etc., then you see, or she's tingling sensations,
Okay.
then you know that something is amiss and she needs to have a blood test done, if possible. She's with you in Qatar?
Okay.
She's with you in Qatar?
No, ma'am.
She's in Mumbai. Yeah, then I don't think food should be a problem for her in Mumbai.
But since like completely vegetarian, like there's no eggs, there's no fish, meat, nothing at all.
Does she, that do vegans drink milk, or that is considered sin?
Yes. No, they do. She's not a vegan. She's a vegetarian.
So
she
milk,
does take
milk,
Milk should be fine.
green vegetables. Sit out in the sunlight, so your vitamin D is not messed up. We
Okay.
Indians tend to forget that, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
She's
Because
gonna-
I was planning when I go home, maybe I will get both my parents the injections of vitamin B12.
No, but why do you want to just load? Unless your doctor feels that she needs, because I'm telling you, your cyanocobalamin injections really pep you up. Especially, I mean, luckily I've had some doctors with me who have recommended that I take alternate for a week, an alternate shot of B12, and it really perks you up. It really perks you up, gives you the energy.
Okay. Okay. Take that.
Anybody else? Parul?
Ma'am, why would
sorry.
Yeah.
no, go ahead.
Carry on, please carry.
Why do they say that when thalassemia patients need to have folate all the time?
Which patients? Thalassemia.
Thalassemia minor, thalassemia minor.
Well, thalassemia minor is hemoglobin A2,
Yes, they do.
and I have a feeling it has to do something with your DNA.
Because they say that since they are minor and they can't take iron, they should take folate.
Yeah, because folate peps you up, na? It works on your DNA, RNA synthesis, and it sees to it that your red cell flow in the circulating blood is good, and you don't land up with megaloblastic anemia or anything of that sort. So that must be the connection, Parul. That
Okay.
must be the connection. Because they can't take iron, that's a fact.
Yeah, they can't take it.
So this will help you maintain your because you guys are forgetting your biochemistry of how hemoglobin is formed. Succinyl coenzyme A plus glycine.
Yeah.
Remember N-acetyl blah 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 to give you, eventually it
Yes.
gives you protoporphyrin. Then you've got the combination where it combines with heme and heme with globin to give you hemoglobin. So revise that biochemistry. Succinyl coenzyme A. See how important it is here too. Plus glycine. Parul, go back and look at your notes of hemoglobin synthesis.
Okay. Right.
That is where it becomes important. Parizad or Meena, any questions?
Ma'am, like what happens if the level increases? Like I was once taking this B3 which had this methylcobalamin and the level crossed to 2000. Then of course I stopped it. So what happens then?
I think that it affects your other metabolisms. Excessive calcium uptake and all that happens. It can affect your thyroid. I'll tell you what would happen to me. When I was discovered to have diabetes, I was put, all these tests were done, and my vitamin D was down. So she put me on this tablet. That was one tablet a week. I, like an idiot, was taking one every day.
Yes, correct.
And it was very high, and doctor said, what do you do? Are you nuts? And she made me cut it down, and I had no other signs and symptoms.
Yeah, okay, because it was stopped.
It can be poisonous. It can be poisonous. Too much.
The last report was from 500 after that. After I stopped it for a few months, then it was 500. It came down to 500, the B12.
NG, are you crazy? B12 is fine.
500, B12.
Yeah, B12 is fine. When you got them,
Yeah.
see the range is
Yeah,
200 to
what's the
900. So 500 is very good.
It had gone up to 2000 actually.
That's
because of
high.
the medicine.
That's
then I
high.
stopped it for
That's-
some 4-5 months.
No, that's high.
And now it has come down
That's
to
fine.
500.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. You're taking the supplements, right? You're taking something every day.
No, only this calcium. That's it. Calcium 500. That's it.
Okay, if you can absorb calcium 500, great. Great, nothing like it.
Ma'am, even if it's high, we say vitamin B12 is water soluble, yeah? I mean, even if it's high, it gets excreted in urine. It's not absorbed like extra is not there in the body.
See,
Is
but
it like
anything
that?
in excess so high can prove toxic. So better to get it down, isn't it? Whether you can get rid of it through urine, etc., is a different thing. That means your intrinsic factors and all are working fine. Or you had deficiency because your intrinsic factor was not working.
Not working, yes.
Then you have to do the Schilling's test and find out what's happening. And the Schilling is more or less obsolete now.
And how do you find out, ma'am, about the intrinsic factor? Like, how do you find
Intrinsic
out
factor is present in your intestine.
Yeah, I
Your
mean,
stomach.
how do you find out that it is less or not there or?
Oh, previously we had what was known as, we used to do the gastrointestinal, fluid was taken out and we used to do free and total combined acid tests, remember? We used to put a tube down to your stomach and then you used to take out
Yeah,
gastric
endoscopy.
lavage. And then you had to titrate for free and total hydrochloric acid. तो वहाँ से मालूम पड़ता था.
Okay.
Now that's an invasive test, so nobody does it. If they have to, they will go for a endoscopy.
Endoscopy.
Any other questions? Parisa, anything to tell us?
29% लगाओ% का याद लगाओ करते चाहिए काले
All right, then I think we'll end. Battery is running a little low. And the next lecture is what is the next lecture?
I think